Hello, welcome to Board with Paint. Today I'll be showing you how to paint the Leshen from The Witcher Old World. As you can see, I've already given the miniature a zenithal prime, so why don't we get started. We'll start by painting all the bark, or I guess the skin of the Leshen, with warm gray from AK Interactive. Next up, we'll cover the clothing that the Leshen is wearing with leather brown from Vallejo Game Color. The skulls and bones are getting a base coat of Bonewhite. Before we go any further, we'll apply the first dry brush to the skin using Ivory. As in previous videos, dry brushing just involves wiping the paint off of the brush till there's only a little bit left, and then brushing over the areas to pick out texture. Next, we'll cover that entire skin area in Seraphim Sepia. As you'll see on this miniature, we'll be using a lot of washes, both to tint the colors and bring back that wood feel to it, but also to enhance the shadow areas. Once that's dry, I'm applying Agrax Earthshade effectively over the entire miniature that we've painted so far. This is actually going to include the horns as well. Now, once that's completely dry, we'll apply a coat of Nuln Oil over all of the leather areas. This will help give the leather a really worn out, dirty look. While the wash is dry, we'll work a little bit on the base. Here I'm starting off with Jokaero Orange, and I'm just painting in some of the fallen leaves that are laying around. I'm not painting every leaf in this color. We'll go in with some greens and browns and do others. And now I'm using Deathworld Forest to paint some of the other leaves. I'm also stippling some of this in random areas on the base, just to give it a little bit of color. Now we'll apply another dry brush to the skin by mixing some cold gray in with some Deathworld Forest. And here we'll hit all of the skin / bark areas to bring that texture back. We'll paint the wolf later, but for now I'm giving it a base coat of silver gray. For the pieces of wood that are laying on the base, I chose to use brown sand. I didn't want the wood to look exactly the same as the skin of the Leshen. Now I'm getting out some olive green and painting more of the leaves on the base, and also stippling this around. I'm going for a lot of variation in color on the base, so it looks like a dirty forest floor. For the wooden totems that are on the back of the Leshen, I'm using Gorthor Brown. This is again to contrast with the other wood tones we're using. Now I'm using Bonewhite to paint in the tie that's around the waist of the Leshen. I'm also using this to paint the little pieces of stitching that you can see throughout the clothing. Next, returning to the leather brown, we'll start applying some highlights to the clothing. We are going to apply this just on the raised surfaces, the tops of the folds, and around the edges where the material might wear out. Now back to some dry brushing with some Bonewhite. This time we'll be applying this over the antlers and the face. Now we'll lighten that with the addition of some Ivory and apply another dry brush over the same areas, but we'll only stay on the upper portions of those parts of the miniature. I then decided to go in with a regular brush and manually putting some highlights on the face. I'm also touching up the skull and the bone that are part of the totem. To highlight the rest of the totem, I'm lightening the Gorthor Brown with a little bit of Ivory, and I'm highlighting the edges and raised surfaces of that wood. We'll lighten that up with the addition of some more Ivory, and then use this to sketch in the indications of some wood grain on those portions of the totem. Now returning to the base, I'm slathering the entire thing in Athonian Camoshade. Returning to Agrax Earthshade, I'm covering the totem with this, and also the portions of white that we painted on the fabric. So that would be the tie and the stitching. Here I'm using some Nuln Oil to selectively fill in those recesses on the skull. So we're going to fill in the eye sockets and the nose hole with this. I'm also hitting the skull with this as well. Now we'll start to paint the wolf using some Army Painter speed paints. I'm starting off giving the bottom part of the wolf a coat of Ashen stone. For the top of the wolf, I'm using Gravelord gray. We'll be going for a pretty standard gray wolf here, where there is sort of a white on the bottom and belly portion, and the fur on the top is very dark or almost black. While the speed paint dries, I'm applying a Bonewhite dry brush to the base. I'm filling in the eyes of the wolf with ice yellow. And then we'll paint the teeth with Ivory. Next, I'm using Abaddon Black to paint the wolf's nose and to draw a little bit of an outline around the mouth. Here I'm doing some touch-ups around the face with Ashen Stone. Here I'm brushing Ashen Stone around that transition area between the two colors on the wolf. We'll try to wet blend this in with the Gravelord Gray in the next step. And here we're applying another coat of Gravelord Gray on top of the wolf, and we'll try to brush this into the Ashen Stone to ease that transition between the two colors. You'll want to do this while the Ashen Stone is still wet though. Returning once again to the base, we'll apply a coat of Biel-Tan Green shade around that entire area to bring in another shade of green. I'm also hitting some portions of the Leshen with this, just to give him a little bit of color and variety. As in the other videos in this series, I'm painting the rim of the base with Abaddon Black. Finally, we're taking some Nuln Oil and just adding some enhancements to the shadows on the wolf. This includes going around the mouth again and getting the shadow areas around the legs and tail. And there we have the completed Leshen. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more videos like it. If you're looking for more content from me, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and I'll sometimes post pictures of upcoming projects there. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, happy painting.